cut myself off. All right, I did it. So hello, everybody. I see I got a couple people on Facebook Live. This is Felicia Moore for another Conversations with the Council President. So I will be looking today at two cameras. I have one that is streaming live on Facebook, which are you people right here. And I also have those up here who are on YouTube. Conversations with the Council President has been a Facebook thing that we've been doing, but people have asked that they're not on Facebook and they would like to have access to what we're doing. And so I'll be looking between both cameras. So I'm wanting to be engaged with everyone. And so we are starting it also on the YouTube channel. That way people who don't have a Facebook subscription can also get on YouTube. So let's see. I need to make sure if one of my staff members can comment for me on Facebook, just to make sure I'm seeing those comments. And I can see the comments already on YouTube in case those come through. So I want to get started right now because we usually do this for 30 minutes and I don't want to take up everybody's time. So first of all, hello, Ms. Howell, good to see you. Hello, Ms. Middlebrooks, good seeing you as well. A couple of talking points right as we are starting. As many of you all know, the funeral for Rashard Brooks is taking place at Ebenezer Baptist Church. And so I'm going to start with just a few seconds of silence in his remembrance. Certainly, his killing by a police officer has been one of the things that has shook Atlanta. And so let's just take a moment of silence and think about him. And I see the comments, thank you, as well as his kids and his wife and his family, friends, and acquaintances. Just a moment. Thank you. So I've got a few things I want to get started with. And then, of course, the Conversations with the Council President is my conversation with you and wanting to hear and answer and address anything that you want to. But first of all, Rashard Brooks' funeral or homegoing is taking place right now in the city of Atlanta. But I do want to remind us, and I think that it bears being a reminder that we are continuing to battle COVID-19. I think because of all the other things that are going on in our country, particularly as it relates to George Brooks' killing, the protests that are taking place across the country, and our attention here in Atlanta on our issues, that people are, well, the media as well as people have sort of pushed COVID-19 to the side. And we can't do that. It is rising across the country. They are sounding the alarm, but I don't think people are necessarily hearing it. So I just want to share with everybody that we continue to be affected by that, as well as the social unrest and protests, demonstrations, and things that are taking place. So I'm going to just remind people you've got to wear your mask. I'm noticing that less people are wearing masks now than they were before. And that is concerning because if we wear a mask, we can keep ourselves from spreading it if we're asymptomatic and not know that we're spreading it. And we can keep people, we can reduce our chance of getting it as well as sharing it. So I want to just remind us of that. Of course, the personal hygiene of washing your hands. I hope everybody as well turned in their census information. That's something to remember, and keep your eyes on the news and what's going on related to whether or not how we're going to be voting. Voting is extremely important as well. So those are some of the things I want to mention. And again, if you all have questions or comments or things that you want me to address, I urge you to please do them now. And again, I'm looking For those who just joined me, I had two cameras, one for Facebook and one for YouTube. So I'm trying to engage with both cameras. Maybe I'll just look in the middle of both and I'll look like I'm engaging both cameras. But I do encourage you to send those questions or comments now so that we don't run out of time before I have time to address them or for you to type them. So COVID-19 is something. Over the last 7 days, Georgia has averaged 1,073 infections reported daily. And again, so continue to wear your mask, personal hygiene, and social distancing. I know people have sort of thrown that to the side because people want to demonstrate and protest. I understand that, but you need to try your best to exercise social distancing when you do. So what has the council done? The council on Saturday, and it was unusual to be on Saturday, but we started our meeting on Friday. We recessed until Saturday because we had over 16, close to 17 hours of public comment. And so the budget was adopted after hearing that extensive public comment. And there was a robust debate on a lot of issues, but here's a summary of what the Atlanta City Council passed. So first of all, there's no millage tax increase. There hasn't been one in the last 12 years. We have not increased our millage rate. There is a $427,000 increase for the ACRB, which stands for Atlanta Citizens Review Board. And this is particularly in response to what we're going on with and making sure that the Citizens Review Board has more resources. It will cover staff for community outreach, marketing, training, community liaison, public affairs officer, and a resolution reviewer, and much more. And so we want to make sure that as we're looking at reforms and things that we need to do, that we're doing that. Okay, so I will get to you, Mr. Boyd, in just a minute. We also, the council approved 1.5 million that was moved out of jail funds towards pre-arrest diversion. We've had it in a couple of council districts, and now there, at least for 1 year, we'll be able to do pre-arrest diversion citywide. Approval was granted to launch an equitable growth grant program, which will focus on creating and attracting high-quality middle-wage jobs to the city. We also approved legislation to create public safety and community support restricted fund and authorize the COO to produce a report and recommendations to enhance the city's public safety approach. This was a resolution. There was an amendment that was attempted in the budget to go ahead and put those funds aside. That amendment did not pass, but the resolution still stands. Okay. So I want to answer Mr. Boyd's question, and let me get to it. Let me go back. What will parents with young children do for daycare when school starts and they engage on a schedule? I have no idea. That's not a city function, and I'm not sure that the school board has determined how they're going to go about school for the next year. And understand too, we're still in this COVID-19 environment. And so they may, and because the numbers are going up, there may be some need to change that altogether. So I can't really answer that question. What did the council do during the FY21 budget process to allocate funding to the Office of Inspector General? Is it fully funded or partially funded? Thank you, Mr. Akins. I have to double check, but I do think that it is partially funded right now. The boards and commissions have not started to meet, but I do know that they are still in the search for Inspector General, and I believe that more money will be given to that office at the appropriate time, but there's certainly enough money in that budget to go ahead and get started. Let's see, that's the only questions that I have. So I had some other notes. I'm trying to figure out which ones I'm going to go. I encourage everybody to fill out the census, and it's really, really important this year more than any time else. Many of the funding mechanisms that we have for the city that come from the federal government, as well as allocations of funds, are also done through population base. And so we want to make sure everybody's counted. So Ms. Brooks says, as APD comes under scrutiny for systematic racism, will the city be looking at systematic racism in all departments? So Ms. Brooks, systematic racism is one, I think, is the foundation to a lot of the issues that we have. I don't know about whether it's going to be looked at in all departments, but I do think, and I know that somebody's got to start this difficult conversation of race, because everybody doesn't necessarily believe that we have systemic racism in our society. But and how that plays out in how police, how we offer goods and services, how we do things. So please, I'm going to see what I can do, but we need to start having that discussion so that we are educating everyone. Okay, so let's see what else. So some of the topics that I highlighted, since I'm not getting questions for you, was that police brutality is one of many interconnected society ills at play, and that goes along with your question of the systemic racism. To that end, I want to have more conversations with stakeholders throughout the city to determine long-term solutions. If you listen to any of our meetings, you probably heard a number of you're welcome, Ms. Brooks, a number of comments, and our emails have been blown up with people saying to defund the police, defund the police. And many of them have come actually from people who are outside the city of Atlanta. This is a nationwide call. And I've talked with my colleagues. I'm on a group with the National League of Cities. It's a national organization made up of mayors and council members and other elected officials across the country. And there's a subset group for council presidents, and that, as well as another group that I attended. This defund the police is one that has gone on across the country, and what's happening here in Atlanta has happened in other cities where they have talked about what does it mean, and they're getting emails and phone calls from people across the country as well. As what I'm understanding that it means, based on the calls, the comments, emails, and talking with other colleagues across the country, is that people want the money that is being allocated to police to be reallocated for other services that could take the place of policing or help reform the policing. And so that is what I think some of the council members want to see, reform and other measures that we're going to have here in the city of Atlanta. And are those funds that can be used from the police department, which is a large part of our budget. Mr. Hewitt, the city of Chicago and New York provided PPE equipment or funds to its taxi cab drivers. Can the city of Atlanta do the same? We can do whatever we wish. I know that we have funding from the CARES Act that possibly could be used at, but I do know the administration had already given the council a list of things that they want to do with that. And most of that PPE money is actually being spent for our employees, our workforce, our first responders. That's something that could be done, but at this point, I have not seen a proposal to do so. All right. So I just want to give some general thoughts on where we are and what we're doing. So I'm gonna go back to the defund the police issue. Mr. Aiken says, will the efforts to defund the police come back up, or is it essentially dead from the budget deliberations? Is there a discussion of bringing it back? So, and I've had to answer this question, thank you, Mr. Aikens, for many people. The council had approved the budget. A budget can be amended at any time. So there are council members who are still looking to do something with sequestering police funds until we come up with some other reform measures. And so at any time, any council member can introduce legislation. The administration can do legislation that would essentially amend the budget. Of course, that would have to go through the budget process, go to the Finance Executive Committee, and ultimately be voted on council. So I do know that there are some members who want to fund the resolution that I mentioned earlier, which would sequester funds until we get a report and some information about how we would move forward. All right. So I was back to the defund the police thing. So I just want to, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail, sometimes a little bit more detail than people want, but detail is important because defund the police to me can be a distraction. And we've spent a lot of time and, you spend a lot of time seeing people debate on social media, et cetera, about what it means or defund the police versus not defund the police. And so in the city of Atlanta, our budget for our police department for the general fund, it's a larger budget when you include the airport, but that's in a separate fund, is around 217 million. I think 35 million of that is for operations. So that may be radios, equipment, supplies, body cameras, that type of stuff. So if you're really going to quote unquote make a 50% reduction in the budget or do other things, defund the police becomes defund police, because the other part of that budget, the 217 minus the 35, all the rest of that is in personnel. And that includes your police officers, their support staff that are civilians, as well as 911 operators, inspectors, et cetera. And so it makes it very, very difficult if you don't want to lay off people, furlough people, or whatever, if you really get into that level of detail. So we have to be careful. And what I want to say to people is it's not always just about the money that's in the police department. There's monies other places. What I'm hearing people is not so much as defund the police, is fund people. Fund things that will help people. And there are other buckets of money, other programs, other grants that we receive. Frankly, some of the grants, like our job program and housing grants and stuff, we're not administering well, that can help to relieve that. So Mr. Parks has a question. Okay. So someone on YouTube is asking for my email address, and my staff handled that. Thank you. So let me go back to Mr. Parks. Thank you for acknowledging the situation at University and Pryor, where armed individuals have been controlling public streets. I've yet to hear anything from the mayor or governor, so thank you. This exit 244 off I-75-85 is unsuspecting travelers exit here, not aware of what is occurring. If order can't be restored, can state troopers block off this exit? This is a really dangerous situation. So I've gone out there, and I'll just go by there today. And there was sometimes state troopers that were there, because when the protests were really in their heightened state, people were getting on the interstate. And so they were poised there to make sure that people weren't going on the interstate. And perhaps they could come back and do that. There really isn't a lot of police presence in that area. And there have been unfortunate situations that have taken place. And it is true. I don't know about today, so I can't speak on what the situation is today. I have not been there yet. We'll be going, but haven't been there yet. But what I understand happened. So let me give a little background. What I'm understanding and understand from the people that are there, it was the first shooting that took place there. And in that shooting, a white gentleman shot out of his car and were shooting people. Someone got shot, and the police, they felt, did not respond or would not respond to that. And so people have taken it upon themselves to decide, let me move this down so I don't lose the comment, have decided on their on the police. And so you do, if you go over there, we'll see people with AR-15s, long guns. I just call them long guns and pistols, and they're armed. And they are there, and they're saying to police themselves because they don't feel that they're getting anything from police. Could you create such a proposal to help the city of Atlanta taxi cab drivers? This is Mr. Hewitt, who are considered essential services and should be considered. What I will do is I will certainly, and my staff is listening, let's send a communication to the mayor's office to consider this proposal. And Mr. Hewitt, if you have an article or something, we'll look for them. We can attach that as well and see if the mayor's office might consider that as part of their PPE funding that they're doing. Because I think that makes a lot of sense because our public is interacting with them. So we will send something to the administration and hope that they make that adjustment. So thank you for that suggestion. I will do that. Let's see. Okay, this is Lori. Defunding the police is not going to solve the problem with the criminal justice system. It encompasses a lot, starting with the family. The criminal justice system cannot be answered. We have to talk about all issues. I hope I'm making sense. You are. You're making sense because we talked about earlier, I don't know if you were on, we were talking about the issue of race, the systemic racism, how that plays into a lot of things, particularly when it comes to policing. Well, it really is systemic, it's throughout everything, and how that even impacts the issue that you're talking about, family and all of that. And so this is a larger conversation than just one. And as I said earlier, defunding the police, to me, I translate that to funding people, funding other ways and systems. There are a lot of good models out there of how you can police in a different way. And that is something that I think we need to look at. So let me look at YouTube and see what I'm hearing there. There is a lot of unpermitted work going on, and we need to call the city. We're told that the city isn't working now. It's wild, wild west out there, and developers are taking advantage. It's very difficult, yes, because we are on a remote thing. A lot of things are taking place that should have happened that aren't happening. But if you have any specific concerns or addresses, call 311. They're pretty responsive. They are making sure that the departments are getting the information. And I got about 6 more minutes. So if you have a question, let me know. Let me see if I have any other questions. When the Secretary of State closes polls in your area, what are your options as citizens? So, Ms. Nesbitt, what's happening is that many of the polling places have been consolidated because of COVID-19. Some of the locations are no longer open to the public and they don't want to have people in. We had several of them that were like in senior facilities, and because of COVID-19 and them being susceptible to it, they had to close them. But what we're doing here in the state of Georgia is moving to a mail-in ballot, which we had a big problem with. So I know that they are working feverishly at Fulton County Election Board as well as DeKalb County to make sure we have a better and more seamless way about voting. So we're going to be hopeful that during our runoff elections that it becomes a lot better. So let's see. Okay, let's see. I don't see any other questions. So let me start to wrap up unless you catch me real quick. Hello, Haroon. And I just want to give a shout out to Haroon who is listening, who he is with the street groomers, and the street groomers have been doing a lot of community work. They go places that no other people go. They are really out there on the street with the people in the community. And when I went out on Saturday, I ran into Haroon and was able to get a lot of information from him about the shooting that had just taken place earlier that day. And I want to shout out to him for assisting the shooting victim. So thank you so much, Haroon. I appreciate all that you do in the community. So again, I want to encourage you all to complete your census. If you have not, remember COVID-19 is not gone away and it's increasing across the country and here in the state of Georgia. Wear your mask, wear a mask, please. Just wear your mask, wash your hands, and do your social distancing. Mr. Akins, we had a report, I think it was yesterday, a public safety committee from the police chief, and he said that they are working on something. And I plan on giving him a call today to find out what that is. But I certainly hope the situation on University Avenue gets better. So my final comment is that many of you all have asked, how can you be involved? And how do you keep connected with your local elected officials? And we're all remote. That doesn't mean that you can't email us, call our offices. We have public comment. You can always add your voice to public comment before committee meetings and vote. That's a big way you do it, vote. And then if you stay connected with me, it will be helpful. Again, I'm live streaming now on YouTube, which is why I'm looking up. We're down to YouTube and up to Facebook Live and YouTube, trying to make sure that I'm able to reach more people because some people are not on Facebook. But you can always contact me. I'm on social media. I try my best, even though sometimes I get worn out because people don't realize how many notifications and tags and things that I get. But I'm really active on Facebook and trying to respond. I do Twitter and Instagram. So you can also hit me up on that. You can email my office at fmoore@atlantagA.gov. Really encourage you to like my page, Felicia Moore, Atlanta City Council President. We share information. Anytime I get something, I share it. If I read a news article and I think other people will be interested, I share it. Things that are happening here, as well as other things that are happening across the country. We post all the meeting notices so that you know when the meetings are, where to take place. If you missed it or you think you might have missed it, just scroll up and down. I know I post a lot of stuff, but scroll up and down, it's there. And I try to do, since we've been remote, this conversations with the council president live at least once a week. If it gets real busy, I may have to not do it, but I try to do it at least once. We're working on a real engaging one and different one for next week, and we're working on that. And so we will be putting a notice out of it. And so I hope you will join me for that. This has been Felicia Moore, Conversations with the Council President. Thank you, Facebook people. Thank you all for joining. YouTube, hey, we're getting started and hope to build an audience there too. And so join me next time for Conversations with the Council President. Everybody have a great day and please stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye. Be on. Bear with me, people.